agenda, our second item is consent agenda. Could I get a motion for consent agenda? Sorry, I got back on. Obvious approval of the agenda. Could I get a motion to? So moved. I get a second. The only thing on the agenda that I'm going to move is under resolution action items 5B, student fees. I would defer that until after we have our discussion. Food service. Under food service, proposed fee increase, which will be in there. So we'll have that discussion and we'll go back to that last action item. Take care of that. Anything else on the agenda? Anyone has any comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of the agenda as presented, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Now moving on to item 2, consent agenda. Could I get a motion for consent agenda? Could I get a second?
Second.
Anything in consent agenda that needs separate consideration or has questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of consent agenda say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda passes unanimously. Moving on to number 3, superintendent's report. Dr. Thompson.
Good evening. It's my pleasure to introduce Robin Schultz, the principal here at Mill Valley, and to introduce those who will be helping her present Mill Valley's report to the board this evening. So thank you very much for the hospitality and the party downstairs. You're very welcome. Very welcome. Just going to switch this over real quick. All right, so tonight I'd like to begin with our school-wide celebrations for the year. So Mill Valley Elementary was one of 165 schools statewide to be recognized as a School of Merit for the 14-15 school year. Schools of Merit were based on the application process that included team and meeting information, implementation, and data outcomes. And it is an honor to have been recognized for our efforts in being responsive to the social and emotional needs of our students. The Mill Valley Staff Student Engagement Survey had a score of 4.44 out of 5 this past winter, and a few highlights from that include a score of 4.79 in regards to that the staff feels that their principal has high regard for their welfare, and in addition to feeling supported with resources and processes to do their jobs and to do them well. In the fall, we had Carrie O'Malley, an artist and muralist, come out, and she worked with all of our students to create the mural that's right outside the door that depicts the great heritage we have here in Muskego. We had 100% of our students setting goals and implementing the data into action process. And when looking at interventions, we celebrate the dismissal of 3 students in reading and 6 students in math since the beginning of the school year. So overall, we have many celebrations. So let's look at some data around academics. So our 4th grade has been making consistent gains over time, with 3rd grade celebrating with the most recent Badger exam. And so if we look at English language arts, we will see that our 3rd grade students scored 83.3, proficient and advanced. Our 4th graders scored 81.5%. In the area of reading, we've shown the most growth over time. And as you know, this has been an area of focus for the district for the past couple of years, and we feel that we've begun to see the fruits of our efforts begin to pay off. If we look at the area of math, we notice our latest data point in the recent Badger exam with 3rd grade at 78.8%, proficient and advanced, and 4th grade at 78.5%. We continue to work on math through the workshop model as we meet the needs of all students through that approach. Another celebration to add to the list is the release of the schooldiggers.com information. If you've never gone before, I encourage you to do so, in which Mill Valley Elementary ranked 21 out of 1,073 schools in the state. That's definitely something to be celebrated. If we look at STAR growth, our school goal was that students would demonstrate a median SGP of 35 on the STAR assessment. As you can tell by the graph above, our median STAR growth as a school was 61. It is always important to make sure that all students are growing over the course of the year, and we're excited to see that our special education population had 88% on the early literacy students in grades 2 through 4 that took the reading assessment did not meet their expected growth gains compared to their peers. When looking at the percentage of students who are proficient, one might notice that Mill Valley scored higher than the district average on reading and math, except for our special education population. So, with that, we recognize that our special education population fell short of making this adequate growth. So, of course, we put a plan in place to address this. First, we analyzed additional student data as we recognize that the STAR measurement is just one tool in data source. Together, the special ed teachers, the regular ed, the reading coach, as well as the building principal and myself, created individualized reading action plans for every student in special ed specific to the students with measurable goals and checkpoints. This plan includes a log that is completed by both the classroom teacher and special education teacher to track the student progress along the way. Our check-in will be March 2nd. I have included a detailed sample for you to review in the board packet, and I'm confident that with our focused efforts, we will make a difference. As a school, we have lots to celebrate. It is our belief that through the data into action process, it is going to take us to the next level and beyond. And here to share with you tonight, I have Julie Hetzel, our reading coach, to share the next steps.
Hi, I'm going to talk just more about that data into action process. And just to start us off, we really start with looking at data and our universal screener, which is the STAR. And we look at that and take a look at what is the big picture here that, what our kids really need. And at the kindergarten level, we notice that we have a really big need for phonological awareness. And so we took a look at that. Noticing that, we said, okay, what are the other pieces of data that we have that can really back this up? So we looked at PALS, we looked at our early literacy, words their way, and we thought, okay, what is this telling us? Got more information. We then created a pre-assessment to find out what are the specific really pitfalls or things that are really kids are not getting. So on that assessment, Mrs. Huxford is the kindergarten teacher that we're just going to kind of use here so that she can share out her data. She has found that half of her class needed rhyming identification and rhyme production. The class also needed blending and segmenting words into syllables. The whole class needed blending and segmenting word parts. And then she had 3 students were really much higher functioning, and they really needed some phonics, where we looked at maybe some vowel patterns for those kids. Shannon, our kindergarten teacher, is going to share out now how she planned using that data into action model and how she planned and instructed from that.
So to begin with, I was able to group my students based on their most important, most significant needs, based on their pre-reading skills. So we were able to group them into 4 groups: rhyming, both recognition and production, compound words and syllables, blending and segmenting word parts, and then segmenting individual sounds. From there, I was able to set an action plan for each one of those groups so that I knew that they were being targeted with specific instruction. Then from there, I created an action plan to really set a SMART goals to make sure that everything was measurable, to make sure that it was going to meet all of their needs. Then one of the groups, I just picked one of the groups, which was my rhyming group, which is both rhyming identification and rhyme production. And their goal was, by December 21st, 80% of the 7 students, or 6 out of 7 students targeted in Mrs. Huxford's class, will be able to recognize and produce rhymes by the end of the 5-week data into action cycle. From there, I was able to then figure out what skills needed to be targeted so that they would meet that goal. Once I was able to figure out the skills needed, then I was able to figure out strategies for how to really target so that they would be able to meet that goal. After we figured out which skills and strategies were needed, This plan really helped me as a teacher to really target all the specific student needs that I had in my class. And everything was laid out. It was all in one document, so I was able to refer back to it multiple times. It also helped because I was able to show this document to my aide, and she was able to then do exactly what I was also doing in the classroom, so those students were getting double dose of instruction. After that, I was checking in with them throughout the time. I had to create a whole bunch of formative assessments, mini check-ins, that would allow me to check to see how the students were doing and monitor their progress. This also allowed me to notice trends if they weren't monitored or if they weren't meeting their goals. This allowed me to change my instruction. Finally, I gave the Phonological Awareness post-assessment, which was the same as the pre-assessment. This allowed me to accurately measure their growth over the 5-week span. And my results from that were 6 out of the 7 students were proficient in rhyming. 3 out of the 3 students were proficient in segmenting, blending, compound words, and syllables. 3 out of the 3 students were proficient in segmenting and blending concept and rhyme, which is the same as word cards. And 3 out of the 3 students were proficient in identifying end sounds in words. So after that, I then took that data and then I compared it to my STAR data. So I took, at the beginning of December, my kids took the STAR Early Literacy Assessment again, and it showed that only 3 students were now below the 50% percentile in phonemic awareness in that subdomain, compared to in the fall when they took it, 10% or 10 of my students were below that 50% tile there. So it shows that there's still growth that needs to be done, but there was major growth overall in all of my students, which was really exciting. Overall, I had learned that the data interaction process really helped me to target my instruction so that I could better meet all my students.
So we're now at the time of the year where they're going to be taking that STAR assessment again, and we'll be starting this process all over again now to really find out, again, where our students' needs at. And then, any questions? Any questions for Robin or anything related to the data that you reviewed? You're ready. Well, thank you. Thank you for your preparation, and you did a really nice job sharing how that looked in your classroom. So thank you very much for taking the time to do that for us. Okay, we do have an update. Check yourself. Thank you.
Oh, it's first thing I said.
Yeah.
I didn't think we were that rough on you guys.
Who really didn't want to give their presentation?
Shoot, it was good. You're supposed to ask. That's good. All right, so we have an update on the STEP program. Julie has an overview and follow-up.
Yep, so the last meeting we did talk about the STEP program, which is the Senior Tax Exchange Program. And again, this program offers community members who are retired property owners to volunteer in the schools, get paid a nominal fee to do so, and they can use that in exchange for a tax credit at the end of the year. So we had talked a little bit about the program, some follow-up questions from the last meeting. We did talk about Brown Deere's model and had some estimates on what they were budgeting for the program. Brown Deere has a population of 12,000 people in their community, and they have a total student enrollment of 1,600. So that was one of the questions that was asked. They budget about $17,000 for their volunteers, and they do have a volunteer coordinator who not only coordinates this program but other volunteer programs within their school district. And that costs them about $23,000 a year.
they levy for all of that as Fund 80, and they have never had to actually turn any volunteers away to stay within budget. So their budget has been consistent. So those were basically the follow-up questions. If this is a program that we are looking to move forward with, the board's interested in supporting the program, we could use Fund 80 to support the program. We do have $99,000 in fund balance that we could use. If we wanted to try out the program for a year and see how it goes, we could set a budget and make sure that, any of the volunteers that come in, we do more of a first come, first serve, find the right fit for our schools. It's just to remain in budget, and then visit it again next year and see how the board would like to continue. We would recommend, if we do move forward with the program, to have a volunteer coordinator position through Fund 80. It would be a part-time position to be able to support the placement and really talking with the staff of the buildings to determine the needs that exist, and then to be able to place people accordingly.
And what would that position all entail? I mean, it's halftime, I know, and you gave me a quick overview of what, but besides just scheduling, what else is there? Is that mainly, you think the scheduling is what's going to take up all the time?
It would be, well, I think what would take up the most time is actually, they would be the contact person for anybody who wanted to volunteer. They would be the ones that would be doing the interviews. We have the background check that's required and all of that. So they would be processing all of that as well, determining, working with the schools to determine what needs there are, whether it's in the classroom, whether it's in the office area, in the library, to support various programs, and then to really fit, the volunteers that they've brought on to support those different areas.
So you're envisioning that position actually doing all this stuff that you mentioned, not just adding that to, having them coordinated, like the background checks being turned away to someone else to do, or?
Well, we have a volunteer process, so if there's a recommendation before, we could either include it with, or just process it with the way that we do our current volunteer process through the ESC, and not just volunteer, but any background check. We have one person doing all of that. But we could look at a program or somebody that has additional time within their schedule to support it. It's just nice to have one focused person. And it doesn't just it wouldn't have to be a volunteer just for this program. It could be for all of our volunteers across the district. So we could support just our total registered volunteer and regular volunteer program.
And do some orientations and training and those types of things, which there would probably be somewhat of a turnover as people meet out their maximum number of hours that are allowed under this program. We would have new volunteers start. So,
Dean, you had a question?
So, Brown Deer budgets 40,000?
40,000 approximately.
So how much would you envision us budgeting?
Well, that's a great question. We don't really, we would have to look at the needs that exist and try to create an estimate for, we would have to first determine a dollar amount. So we would be looking at something like $6 or $6.50, and then go from there to see approximately how many hours each building would use. I don't know that it would be significantly more than this. I think that this is a good start to the program. And we really don't know, because we've not reached out to the community, how many volunteers we would actually have for the program. So my recommendation would be to start with a program similar to this size, and if it grows, then come back to the board next year for a recommendation to increase. But I think we should start small and make sure that we can make sure the program is successful before moving forward with anything more significant.
So we would budget for it, i.e. tax for it.
We could do it one of two ways. That would be the first year, because we have fund balance. We could either just use fund balance, which means there would be no tax levy for it, because we would essentially not have any revenue coming in, just have the expenditures from the program, and that would just deplete the fund balance. Or we could actually levy in Fund 80 for the full amount, or partial. We would have to have it either way.
Now, is there a way of using some of these volunteers to be offsetting some expenses that we have in our general budget?
No, that was one of the questions that came up, and there was actually an attorney that I talked to from WASB, and he said you have to be really careful, because if you're starting to supplant, then those people can't be really considered volunteers getting a nominal fee for their service. Then it becomes where you're replacing one employee with what should be an employee, and you should just be hiring them and paying them at least minimum wage, and then the tax credit piece goes away. So there's kind of a fine line. You don't want to start hiring a lot of volunteers and then eliminating positions that exist in the current budget.
So what are some of the positions that are being done around here?
Some of they have people that, they have like a central copying center. So they have people that come in and do some copying that don't want to be in classrooms. They have in classroom, they'll come in and they'll read. Some seniors actually hold like after school programs where they help students with construction projects, depending on what their trade was. There's also a nurse that's retired who, visits the health room and just provides additional support within there. So they're not eliminating aid positions or eliminating support positions, they're just enhancing what's there.
Sounds like a fine line. Instead of between enhancing or just simply, understaffing under the budget and then.
Well, you would have to be able to show that you're not depleting what you're currently allocating for that area, that particular area.
Refresh my memory, Julie. What are our other options for using Fund 80? What do we use Fund 80 for? What can't we use it for?
It's gotten down to very minimal use. If you are doing anything within your school systems that help support the schools and the community at the same time. So for instance, we had our PDC program, and that's a majority of the programming is through our schools. We were paying for that out of Fund 80, but the law changed. Now we have to pay for that same program out of Fund 10. They don't let us prorate the maintenance costs, prorate the director costs, any of that anymore. The only thing that we're technically allowed to have in there right now is open swim. For communities that have, or for school districts that have their own rec program, your entire recreation program could be in Fund 80, but we don't have our own recreation program. The city maintains that. So it would be any community-based program in which you would open up the opportunity, not only just to students within your school, but it would have to be students or community members in total.
So this is a program that really is a value add for both. It's a win-win for both our, senior community that actually expressed quite a bit when we were at Tudor Oaks a few weeks ago, wanting to come in and find a reason to be in our schools and, be here. So that wouldn't necessarily fall under STEP, but it just made us aware that there are likely others in our community who have their own homes who would find it of value to be in schools and be connected with, that whole intergenerational opportunity, have some meaning, and then actually have an opportunity to have a write-off on their taxes. So we see it as a win-win. It's value add for the system, having more hands and helpers and having that intergenerational experience for our students of all ages. And so really finding a way to connect.
I support the program. My questions shouldn't be geared as trying to be critical. I'm just trying to get a grasp of the different areas that we can use it from. I think as Kelly just said, Dr. just said, the idea of having that, reaching out to that segment of the community and having them tied to our schools and actually feeling ownership of our schools because their children are now gone and everything. It's another way of reinforcing that tie, especially in the cycle we're in right now, the referendum cycle. If we were able to get this started before that, then it just enhances that. But I'd also like to find a way to, make it the most beneficial for both sides as well. So that's what my question is.
And I was, Rick and I, and Kelly, and I think Brett, you were there as well when we talked to Brown Deer about this. So I'm still interested in it. I'm a little hesitant to tax everybody. I realize it's a small dollar amount, but general principle of taxing everybody for the benefit a very small segment of the population can benefit from. A little bit of a hang up there, but I'm still interested in learning more about it.
Well, since we do have fund balance on it, I don't have a problem depleting the fund balance and doing a trial run on it and then determining what route we're going to go on it, because we are very limited on how we can use that fund balance anyway. So of all the things that at least I'm aware of that we can use it from, this seems to jump off the top of the heap of it.
And chances are it's the type of program that's going to pick up steam as it goes. I would imagine that once word gets out, it's going to become a little bit more well-received and more popular, I should say. That first year, there might be some growing pains.
Right. Now, you did say we don't have to fund it under Fund 80. We can do it under Fund 10 if we so choose. Obviously, it's taking away from other programs if we do that, but we do have that option.
Yeah, I mean, we could at any point. It's such a specific community-based program that makes it easy to utilize the $180, but I mean, you could really put it under any program, under any fund that you wanted to.
So I guess that my recommendation to the rest of you would be that we do a pilot program, use the Fund 80 that we have right now, and if we decide to do this as a long-term program, at that point decide if we want to levy under Fund 80 or use it under Fund 10 and prioritize it from there. That's a discussion we can have after we decide if it's a meritable program at all, without having to use those existing resources for.
When are we thinking of implementing this coming fall?
We could start at any time. If we utilize fund balance, we could start as soon as, really spring, because it would just be utilizing those dollars and utilizing the fund balance. We would just need board approval to do that. So we could start. We could hire a volunteer coordinator.
And we know where we have need. I wouldn't have a problem starting it fairly soon.
Yeah, I think the sooner the better. Yeah. If we're going to do it.
But I would like the feedback on how well it works after the first year or so. Well, probably.
We would do a report out at the end if we could get it started and implemented and had enough, volunteers to the end of the year. We could report out by the end of the year, and then we can do like a mid-year again after, like in December or January.
Just to see where they were used, how receptive they were, how beneficial. Because I think there's a lot of benefit to some of our senior citizens being able to go into schools and offer some of the knowledge they have, whether it's helping reading or whatever programs.
And actually, some of the seniors that I talked to from John Deere said they liked it because they got to work with kids and the kids taught them how to use the computer. And so help them become more literate with some of the technologies that we use today. So.
Eric, can you guys keep clicking on something you might?
Using the Brown Deere budget here, I would rather see us attempt to do it with existing staff, if possible. You're looking at $23,000 to hire a part-time person to basically execute $17,000 worth of assistance or tax assistance to seniors. I would rather see the whole $40,000 going and use our existing staff. And I think we can do that. At minimum, let's try doing that for the first year, see where it goes. But I don't like to start a program that is not mandated by the state and then hire staff to do it. I think if we look at student services or I don't know if it's run out of the high school or the activities office or whatever, we could figure out 2 or 3 people that could put a joint effort together to make this work with existing staff.
I guess I do have some concerns about. I guess I'd be alarmed if we have someone in our system that can sit around that has almost a half an FTE available in their time that we have them hired already that they have that much of a gap in their schedule.
Well, I'm not talking about one person. Maybe a group of people.
You're still going to need a main point person on it. You're talking about coordinating a lot of volunteers on it.
What other options do we have as far as something good?
The staff that we would have available would be staff who are already part-time, and then as soon as they hit 30 hours, we'd be adding benefits. So that would be an increase of almost $20,000 cost if they got over the 30 hours. We would want it centrally located so that this could be a point of contact, I guess, for all the buildings. I just don't know. I guess I would have to ask each principal if there's capacity. I don't know if there's capacity within.
Well, if we had a process set up, we'd be able to distribute the workload between a number of people. Maybe have one coordinator.
You'd still need one coordinator.
Well, yeah, I mean, just one person who kind of is the go-to person if there's any sort of questions, issues. They still could be a part-time person picking up another 5 hours a week or something.
About other coordinators want to see you as part of your volunteer.
That's possible.
Can you do that?
It could be, we'd have to figure out how many hours they could actually work, because as soon as they made over $600, they would get a 1099, which would become taxable, and that would go against the ability to get their tax break. Because it
They don't
becomes
have many
taxable
hours
income.
that they can do this for you.
They have 100 hours.
Yeah.
I know not to do math on TV, but that one I can do.
So we can bring this back for discussion or action to the next meeting, and we can look internally, and otherwise we'd be bringing back, a recommendation to use the Fund 80 for the full program for the first year. And we can look to, once we have something established, possibly also looking at, do we have some internal staff that we could, rather than levying in Fund 80, could we absorb that in some other fashion once we have things going? But we'll look before March 7th. Would you like it to come back as an action right away so that we can start as soon as
You can
possible?
bring it back as an action. We
And
can always just
you can always
defer it.
just defer it if you want. Is that okay? Okay. All right. Thank you. All right, so then the final superintendent report item is the board goal progress. So this is just a mid-year review of the board's progress on the 3 goals that were established during the summer of 2015. So the first goal was deploying a multi-year facilities plan, and of course, as you know, we've moved forward with a referendum and those details, and the timeline is there. So we are making progress toward establishing that. Of course, what happens on April 5th will determine whether or not we have to the drawing board, but certainly the wheels are in motion there. The second item was to engage in a review and then to begin a superintendent's performance evaluation system. And as you know, we did in the fall begin with the use of DAPES, and actually the board will be meeting in closed session to review the mid-year progress on the 6 performance and 6 outcome goals or performance standards. So that's also very much in progress. And the third goal from the board was to conduct biannual reviews of the school and department eye on the goal. And as you know, at our last board meeting, we had teams from each of the buildings and departments share with the board progress on the eye on the goal. So I just wanted to give you that as far as an update, and any questions on that? So thank you for all of your efforts, and that concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you. We had other reports. I have no president's report tonight. Is there any board member reports? Hearing none, student representation. Hi, Lauren.
Hi. So I'm going back 2 weeks ago. So 2 weeks ago, the varsity wrestling team took second at the conference meet. Senior Grant Balcony and junior Jordan McGuire and sophomore Evan Cinda all brought home championships. There was a junior, Tom Winthizer, and sophomore Addison Price. They both took second. And Parker Belblinka, Tyler Shannon, Adam McNally, Gavin McNally, and Brian Schrader placed third. The MHS forensics team earned more wins at Wauwatosa East. Mary Jo Canellos earned a first place trophy in demonstration speaking, and Zach Pileggi earned a 4th place medal in prose speaking. And then a big congratulations to Joe Nance, who coordinated an outstanding FBLA Regional Leadership Conference, which was held at the high school for over 700 attendees from all over southeastern Wisconsin. 20 FBLA members advanced to state and have the opportunity to compete at the State Leadership Conference in La Crosse in April. And there they have the chance of advancing to the national competition that will be held in Atlanta. And then in addition to these 20 members, 14 other members earned honorable mentions in their events. And also congratulations to Maddie Becker, who was elected to serve as the 2016-17 Wisconsin FBLA Region 4 Vice President.
And then finally, the boys basketball team defeated McGuanago 64-45 and Catholic Memorial 77-68. And then this past week, the gymnastics team continued its winning streak by winning the 8-team McGuanago Invite. They finished with 146.85 team total, just 1/10 ahead of Kenosha. Muskego gymnasts had a great showing at their meet, with senior Sam Balsarak placing second all around, first on bars, and third on beam. Freshman Crystal Nelson took third all around and third on the beam. Senior Aaron Schultz was fifth on the floor, and senior Jesse Kaiser took ninth on the floor. The varsity wrestling team took fourth at the regional tournament. Grant Belconi and Jordan McGuire led the team by both winning championships. Tom Winthizer and Evan Sinda both placed second. Parker Bablinka, Adam McNally, and Jacob Hine also advanced to this week's sectional tournament. The forensics team competed at West Bend East and continued to bring home wins. Clayton Kavanaugh, Joshua Zhang, Mary Jo Canellis all earned first place medals. The boys swim team qualified 6 boys for the WIAA state meet held at UW-Madison this next Saturday. The qualifiers are Drew Borland in the 100 fly and the 500 free, Ivan Couch in the 200-yard individual medley and the 100-yard breaststroke, Josh Paquette in the 100 breaststroke, and Ben Gabby also in the 100 breaststroke. And then the 2 relays that qualified were the 200 medley relay and the 200-yard freestyle relay. And then coming to school this morning, students found red hearts with positive messages written on them on their lockers. These positive hearts are part of the continued senior class gift to make the school a better place and to help end bullying. And then coming up this week Saturday is the Sadie Hawkins dance at the Princeton Club. And the sophomore class has been working hard and running competitions during ticket sales, and the students are able to win free tickets from those competitions. That's all I have.
Any questions for Lauren? Just a comment, the wrestling meet that Lauren referenced there, the regional competition was held at Muskego. It was kind of a big deal.
The last time, Lauren, you said that moving to the Princeton Club was in hopes of getting greater participation. Do you know how ticket sales are going?
Well, ticket sales go to this week Wednesday. Kids tend to wait till the last day to buy their tickets, but I can let you know at the next meeting how many tickets we sold compared to last year and how that worked out. So.
Are you going?
Yes, I am.
Did you go last year?
Yeah.
Okay, so bad example. My son's going this year, didn't go past year, so there's.
Is it because it's at the
There's
Princeton
one.
Club?
It is because it's at Princeton, yeah.
Really? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item 4E, public forum. This is your opportunity to present any concerns or comments to the school board regarding operations. Form a single file line, don't all rush up. Going once, twice. Thank you. Moving on to resolution action items, 5A, 2016 Lake Danoon roofing contractor approval.
Motion to approve Wallsdorf Roofing to complete the Lake Danoon roof replacement at the amount of $520,950.
Have a motion?
So moved.
Second, please.
I'll second.
Discussion. Jeremiah.
So in the fall, we talked about capital projects and moving forward with the Lake Danoon roof. Typically, the department has tried to stagger every other year or so roofing, and then the next year something else, so this would be a roofing year. The roof is 16 years old now, going on 17 years old. It's a 15-year roof, so we continue to patch and make sure it just continues to work for us. We bid out with 3 qualified contractors. The pricing came back ranging from $520,000 to $616,000. I'm recommending going forward with Wallsdorf Roofing for the cost of $520,950. And just note that last year we reduced our grounds contracting that we were doing by almost $120,000. Last year we had purchased a lot of equipment, so that's where a lot of that money went. So I was looking to reallocate some of those funds towards the capital project to be able to get a bigger economy of scale. I think that the pricing is right. Oil prices are down which also have a lot to do with roofing. And I think that after this we'll have like 30% left. So another summer like this, and it could be done with the Lake Danoon roof. Moving on to the next roof.
Have you used Wolfson?
I'm sorry.
Have we used them?
I'm familiar with them, and the engineers that we use to spec stuff out are very confident in them. They actually specialize only in the roofs that we're putting on here. So I think that's why we got a better price, because they specialize in the 30-year built-up roof.
And we normally allocate about $400,000 towards this project. You're saying that the extra $120,000 is we can spend an extra $120,000 because of what we're saving.
Correct.
Ground. Do we always use a consultant for a project like this?
Yeah, and actually, it does take an engineer to put together a scope like this. The bid docs are about 100 pages long, so I'm not an engineer, so I wish I could do it for us, but not there.
So Jeremiah, I just have a question. Under unit costs, are those included into this price, or is this on top of it? They have to replace something?
No, that's for the engineer to be able to determine how they came to their pricing, so that's all within there. So it's just kind of giving us an idea of what their overhead and profit is.
Okay, that's quite a difference.
Sure.
Any idea why, or?
Again, they stick to, this is their niche, doing built-up roofs, and I'm told that they're a very efficient company at doing their work, and I always appreciate it a little bit. So. Okay. To be honest, they all sit there and bite their nails while we're opening this because they put so much time into putting together their bid package, and they all throw up their arms at the end of the day.
So, how is this being funded?
It's out of the buildings and grounds budget.
For what year?
It'll be, because we put the capital dollars in Fund 41, we have the ability to carry the money into the summer. So if the work is done over the summer, we can carry that money forward.
So it's coming out of this year's budget.
It's coming out of this year's budget, correct?
The whole 520?
No.
It would be the 16, 17.
It's the 16, 17. It's the 400,000. It's the capital budget from 16, 17
Okay.
that he's using.
And 120,000 is coming out of this year's budget.
Right. We put the money into Fund 41, which is that separate levy that we do out of Fund 10. And that allows us, if we don't have projects complete or if we're starting them, we have the ability to use funds from this year to pay for next year's.
So is there anything coming up that, for buildings and grounds, that you'll be asking us to take from Fund 10, fund balance, between now and the end of 2016?
Only if there's a major catastrophe with the pool or one of the boilers at one of the schools. I guess that would be the things that are on my radar, but not things that I have plans for.
I think it's important that we be conscious of keeping our fund balance at the level it's at, or increasing it over the next year or two, especially if the referendum is successful in April, since we're going to be using a chunk of that to support the referendum.
Yeah, I think that these projects that we're looking to do, I mean, our capital, the reason that we have the referendum is because there are so many capital needs. So I think anytime that we can provide the opportunity to utilize funds from this year's budget to support costs to help bring down future projects, we're doing within budget and, within the funds that Jeremiah has allocated, so.
Any other comments? Questions? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, Jeremiah.
Thanks, Jeremiah.
Thanks, Jeremiah.
Student fees, we're going to put on hold until after we have the discussion on the food service mid-year update. So I'm going to move on to discussion item 6A, 2016-17 budget. Anything, just a placeholder. Any specific questions anyone else has right now that they saw right now? Hearing none, moving on to item 6B, food service mid-year update.
Okay, Okay, so we have two representatives here from Tucker. Colleen Penny is our food service director, and Judy Cameron is here on behalf of Lisa, who is out for a short period of time. So Judy's stepping in to help report out this for the mid-year. In the board docs, there were 3 different documents, and so what we'd like to do, the board had asked that we come back and just talk about where the food service program is mid-year for the high school. So what we'd like to do is just look at all the schools. We'll do a 3-year history. We'll look at the high school and where we're projected to be for the end of this year, where, how we've been the last 6 months. We'll also talk about the middle school lunch scenarios. One of the thoughts was, could we pull the middle school out of the federal program and see if we can increase profitability with that option. And so we'll be talking about 3 different scenarios. And then we'll also talk about a fee increase that we would be asking the board to approve for student fees, and that's directly related to federal guidelines that require us to continue to increase our food service pricing. So with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Maybe what we'll start with is the first chart, which was the 3-year history and the comparison participation. And then Glenn can give you a little bit of an update just from some programs that we've added and some things that we've been doing before we talk about the high school financial and what the middle school would look like. We basically took and went back to 2013-14, which would have been the last year that all of your buildings were in the federal program. Moved to 14-15, which was the first year we pulled the high school out, and then obviously 15-16. And we're using obviously as it relates through the end of January. So basically, one of the things that we found when we pulled the high school out in 14-15 was that not only were the food service personnel programmed into the regulations and making sure that they were checking everything, and the kids were also. So that meant even though they didn't have to take a certain amount of fruits and vegetables on the tray because there wasn't a meal anymore, they still did. And so some of the things that we thought were going to happen last year didn't. And as you look, you can basically see that we pulled the program in 14-15, and yet we struggled with the overall meal counts. If you fast forward and look at just 15-16 and then really compare to 13-14, our elementary counts are over where they were last year, which is a good thing. And Colleen and her staff really working with menu changes and items to really figure out what's the most popular to kids of that age group. And we still like to get closer to where we were in 13-14. Regulations are going to be a little bit different next year to hopefully the positive. So we will continue to take the tests and hopefully get kids of that age group excited. Overall, in our entire program, the middle schools are where we're struggling the most. And we have some operational challenges that we believe feed into whether the kids are participating in the program. We've been working to minimize extremely long lines, and then also some of it is just kids at that age have certain ideas of what they like and don't like. And so, again, the staff has been working with different menu options and things that they did try. And then really at the high school, since 13-14, obviously there's not as many kids from a free and reduced standpoint that we're feeding and giving meals. Between the last 2 years since we've come out, the program goes are very stable. But overall, we've seen a 10% plus increase this year, and ultimately it shows in the amount of average revenue per day. So basically, based on numbers anyway, we believe that certainly it was a good decision to pull the high school out of the program, and I think everybody seems happier, not with the numbers, but I think just from comments we have. I think you did a survey and have put it to programs. You want to talk about maybe?
Sure. So I'll start with the survey. At the beginning of the school year, we did survey parents. This went out to all parents in the district. And we received, parents and students. We received almost 1,400 responses, which I thought was really great. So the survey split into a parent group and a student group. So we were able to identify where the data was coming from, whether it was student feedback or parent feedback. A lot of the questions that we asked were, how often is your child eating at school? How often are you eating at school? Are parents joining your children? Are they seeing
what we're doing in our programs. Do they believe that our meals are healthy? And we also focused on what kind of fruits and vegetables they like. One of the challenges that we are having is that a meal now must include a fruit or a vegetable in order to count as a meal. So identifying what students are really looking for to make that an easier time through the line in making their meals. We did get some feedback from parents that they are wanting menus back from a few years ago. So we took some of those specifics and have made some changes to our menus. We've heard some of the feedback was, I don't have enough time to eat. So trying to alleviate some of that on our end. One of our elementaries in particular, we were noticing that kids were coming through the line, scanning their cards, and there was a bottleneck at the fruit and veggie bar just because of the volume of students at that site. So we ended up adding a second fruit and veggie bar so that would alleviate that bottleneck, and that has helped get the students through the line a little quicker and give them a little bit more time to eat. So I guess I'll move on to the high school. We've made some changes at the high school based on what we learned last year, what we observed. We've offered some additional options at lunchtime. Last year, there was a lot of mirroring in windows, meaning we had the same thing offered at 2 windows. So we decided to try some new things this year. We have a fresh grilled panini that's new, so it's very much like Panera. We've also added one of their favorites, which was the gourmet burger bar twice a week. So really observing, talking to the students, finding out what they're looking for. There is one day that we are not able to mirror, and that is the Warrior Bowl day because it is the most popular day of the week. And that is Thursday, so that's high school. Middle school, this year we have Chef Luke has visited middle schools once a month, and that has proved to be very successful. It's a very popular day. Students are excited when he shows up and creates a meal and serves it just for them. So that has been very positive. And recently at Lake to Noon, some of the feedback from students is that the lines are too long. We're not having, enough time to eat, enough time to socialize with our friends. And one of the issues that we're having at both middle schools is that students aren't bringing their honor cards, which backs the lines up. So we did add a 3rd register to see if that would help move kids through the line, which it is. And I'm anxious to see what the data looks like after a few weeks after it registered.
So the next was snapshot for the high school. And when we met with Julie, we had data through December. So the revenue and the actual data we used, actual was through December, and then we forecasted for the balance of the year. On the way the revenue for the high school looks, the very top part basically shows the free and reduced that we're feeding, and we are feeding them reduced half 40 cents for their meal. The free students are egregious as they would have been had you gotten funding. That equates to $268 a day. So the overall budget for the program, that's about almost $48,000. And then the programs offered at the high school. The revenue comes from not only the a la carte. Obviously, we still break out the departments of milk and individual milk service, so that's separate. Catering all runs really through the high school, as well as vending machines that are in cafeteria. And then special programs, like the catering agreements with like Washington Telephone, those are satellite out of the high school. So the labor base of the high school does all of these programs, and then the almost $5,000 a day in sales. That then translated to what we looked at for a snapshot. And in our world, there's less days of service between the first day of school and Christmas break. And obviously, it's really the winter months and the months that have more days of service when our program's the strongest. And so even though there was a loss through December, that really wasn't something that we were really shocked by. In September in particular, kids are trying to get used to the new, what's there and what's not. We were making changes. Freshmen are totally in awe at what they see. So it just builds and gets stronger. We projected what we think we'll do to now to the last day of school, and then overall, it's about right on the line, just a few $1,000s we're anticipating we might have as a loss. And it's close enough that certainly even a day or two, one way or the other, could really have us, breaking even. So again, when you looked at the statistics from the data and the meal counts and the revenue, that says it was the right decision, and certainly, I believe P&L does too. And even Clean Dinner staff for Valentine's Day did cupcakes, strawberry mousse cupcake that was, and vanilla, they could buy a single of those, and they had a little Valentine's Day part on them. And all of that, the high school students, they come to school, and there are some things that you can do where if you're in the program, and one of the things that even now they started is even after school sales. But a lot of those things that really, that age group of students, if you make it easy for them, and certainly keep them from driving to the local coffee shop or whatever and coming back, we can really capture sales into the lunch program, which is what we want to do. The last part that we were asked to talk about was what would happen, or did you even consider pulling the middle school out of the program as well. And so the way we chose to actually at least take a look at the data was to take a look at the current program with your current meal prices, what the funding levels are, and then what that basically translates to per day in sales/revenue. And what it really comes out to be is about $2,900. So then each of the other sheets, we left the meal counts, the meal prices the same, and said, okay, if you're out of the program, the federal and state funding goes away, what does that do? And what that does is you basically lose about $556 a day just when you take the funding away. And, on top of that, we talked about the fact that certainly, free and reduced will continue to be able to participate in the program. And so if you have to offset the food cost for that same number of meals, that's about $26,000. So hopefully that makes sense. And then since we had a 10% increase at the high school, we believe that was a realistic number. The other thing is we looked at saying that there really is no reason by the time we look at minimizing the long lines and do more work with menu items and talking to students, that we really want to get a stronger middle school count back. And so the next scenario said if we raise the sales and the meal counts by 10%, then how short would we be? And to our magic $2,900 where we are now, that only had us at $2,573. So the question also that Julie asked us then was to say, okay, if you left all of that the same, what would that do to a price increase? Just, okay, we have to do something. And 10% is already a participation increase. And that would really take, basically that last page said to get to the $2,900, it would take the increase in meal numbers, the 10% increase in out part sales, and raising the meal to 60 cents.
So to get out of, to be a break even at the middle school, we have to increase sales by 10% and increase meals by 60 cents.
So we basically put the onus on us to say that we can't just leave the meal counts or the out-part sales where they are. And this year we've seen a 10% plus. So we took that increase first to see how far away we were. And then said, okay, what does that mean? And then calculated it with that additional.
And we've seen a 10% increase at the high school.
In overall sales. We don't really do meals there. The stations are set up, and if you want to, it comes with 2 sides. And then if you want to add, so if I want to double the fruit, then I just pay for the extra. Or I could take 2 foods for my 2 sides. So it's kind of not quite apples to apples comparison. But stay in the meal mentality, which is where the middle school is right now. For the sake of the numbers, anyway, that's what it is.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, going back 2 years ago, moving out of the federal program at the high school was going to bring us a profit, which we have not succeeded in doing, and we're projecting that we won't succeed in doing it this year. So I'm not sure why we're talking about doing this at the middle school.
Well, we're recommending that we don't. We're just showing you the data to prove why we would not want to.
Yeah, the question on the table was,
Right, it was.
does it make sense to do it? Because certainly kids are happier when you don't have to have the whole cost and you're told that you have to take vegetable and things like that. So, that part's a given. So that's why we did it always compared to your program. But you're absolutely right, we don't have to do that.
So when are we going to reach our goal that we thought we were going to reach last year at the high school? Because when I heard this whole plan 2 years ago, I'm thinking to myself, I'm not really looking at a profit. I don't really care if we get a profit. I just don't want to keep raising rates.
Right.
Or fees. And
well, but the fee increases as they're going up are a result of the federal guidelines that are requiring those fee increases. So you can talk more about the paid equity calculator if you want to.
So USDA, the year before they changed some regulations, also came up with their pay equity formula. And that was their way of saying, if we're going to give school districts money for the cost of a meal, then the school districts need to do their part to keep in pace on a paid meal as close as they can. And so this year, the federal government, for a free meal, we're getting $3.13. So they take, and by mathematical formula now, they put a cost of living increase and take a look at what the gap should be. And then when Julie and Clayton figure out where they are in relationship to that, it's only based on the paid meals. And so ultimately, because the high school typically has a higher price, when that comes off, then everything that you do at your middle school and your elementary is being compared to that percentage. And so this year when we did the calculator, it basically says that to stay within the mathematical formula that you to, it comes out to be 12 cents. So ultimately, if you raise it any less really than 15, then you're just not, it's not going to go away. You just have to look at a different increase next year. Because DPI keeps track of what your selling price is compared to what the formula says, compared to what you did.
And then really what they do for likely to get audited in 16, 17, basically what they can do through the audit is say, well, you haven't raised your prices the way that the equity calculator has said you should. And essentially they could hold our funding and not provide us the federal reimbursement because we're not aligning with the rules set forth.
So what's the rationale of us having to keep the meal price up to a certain level?
They use what they give you for a free meal as their benchmark. So they're giving you $3.13.
So they have a set reimbursement rate, not based on what we charge.
No.
Okay.
So the whole NC in years past, up until they came up with that calculator, they basically didn't care what a district charged. And then they said, well, wait a minute, we're continuing to pay for higher priced districts for the free meal. Reduce pay 40 cents of that. So basically those are instead of the same $3.13 as you would. But if you're not raising your paid price in proportion to the same way they are, then your free starts to subsidize your paid, and that's why you did put the formula in place.
so I understand what our meal satisfaction goals are with moving away from the federal. What's our financial goals? Maybe I forgot them, I'm not sure. I'm sure we talked about that 2 years ago. what was our financial goal?
The dollar amount or the philosophy behind it?
Philosophy.
Not to lose money.
The other thing from just all the districts we work with in history, basically the districts that we have anyway that got high schools out of the program, if you could believe, struggled less financially last year than the districts that we had in, because across the country, by the time they lowered the sodium and basically on top of that took away a lot of the snack
We
items.
were feeding cardboard.
The a la carte.
We were feeding cardboard.
And the good news is they're not going to lower them again they're doing a study to see. But basically, a lot of the things, especially in our program that we have built in, that the kids, if they really didn't want what you were offering from a meal standpoint, they would purchase them a la carte. And all of a sudden, there's a calorie limit on that. You have to watch the saturated fats and all of that from a snack item too. So that didn't help if your a la carte was helping your prices lower besides. So really, there was a huge loss financially in schools programs all the way across the country last year.
To answer your question, Eric, there was the last 2 years, correct me if you jumped in at any point, I'm misstating this, the last 2 years that we were in the federal program, there was this sharp decline in the amount of meals we were being sold. So our end of the year balance, we were not only projecting, but we were actually realizing a loss every year. And based on the trend, it wasn't going to get better. Kids weren't buying the meals, but yet we have set cost of running a meal program. It's not like you can just say, okay, you have less cost of making the food. All our set costs couldn't cover our monthly nut from what we were able to sell.
And am I missing it here, or do we have that on the middle school?
Are we having that in our middle school now?
Are we losing money in the middle school program?
Yeah, we are. We are losing money, but not to the extent we were in high school.
Okay, but if we're going to raise the prices, kids don't want to eat with the new guidelines. Are we going to continue? I mean, because now raising prices is going to put even less demand on it, correct? So could we lose more money by doing that?
Can we use what money?
Just because we're raising prices doesn't mean we're going to increase
revenue. The
revenue.
regulations are adjusting for the better for next year for the federal program. They're not going to be ever what they were, but they are getting slightly better. So if you want to give an example of something that's going to go away.
Yeah, next year of all the grains, 80% now have to be whole grain. We're up to now this year it's 100. So if you think about macaroni and cheese with whole grain pasta, whole grain pasta is hard to deal with on a large volume, with glue and it looks brown on top of it. It's very appealing. So the things that now really aren't good in whole grain, we're going to be able to go back to the old way, and that at least in those that we can get into market food. I think.
So we're hoping that some of those changes can help offset some of those issues.
Like it or not, we're in private enterprise. We're finally making, at least breaking even.
So the fee increases that the federal government wants us to make, we don't have to do that at the high school level? Is that correct? Because we're out of the program?
Correct.
So it would just be at the middle school that we need to raise, at the elementary school, middle school, that we need to raise those prices?
Correct. I mean, we would want to keep the high school in alignment. I mean, we wouldn't want the high school to be less cost than the middle school. We want to, otherwise it's just going to keep it like that. So.
Don't need to do this, but we have to do it because.
We would, at the high school now, it's all, it's a price-value relationship and a perception. And so we're also watching what NIM costs and setting selling prices to be in line with that. Or when you look at really the middle school and the elementary, to your point, more about the have to, when it comes to the price.
So what's this breakfast thing we're serving now at the high school? Or we're going to be serving? I've seen signs of high school.
We started a breakfast program as well as after-school snacks. What we were noticing is that students were coming to school early and they were eating out of vending machines. So we saw a need there for students to have something a little healthier than an machine breakfast.
And how is that working so far?
Really well.
And is that like helping supplement the other parts?
Very much, yes.
And they've also done things like offer, I don't know if it was a snack or what, like when there was ACT.
Yeah, so something different that we tried this year is in the past when there would be exam days, the kitchen was shut down, those would be cleaning days. So this year we've decided that, there's students that are in the cafeteria studying anyway. Maybe they would want something healthy to eat, keep them going, and that has been very successful also. So we were open during the 2 exam days of high school as well.
So what are you looking for from us today?
We will be asking for the federal increase that's required and the ability for us to move forward. We'll continue to look at the middle school as an option, but for the 16-17 year to continue with the program as is.
Any other questions or concerns on those 2 points?
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
And by the way, we enjoy Chef Luke also when
Yes.
we come into the board meeting, so we always look forward to that. Yes, very much so.
Yeah, we'll move it.
So are we going
Moving on with
back then to,
what?
are we going back to 5B?
We've got, let's just finish up 6C, and then we'll go back to
Okay.
these overall. Moving on to item 6C, city proposal for a walking path. Dr. Thompson?
Yes, well, Jeremiah is here and David Simpson, who is from the city, will explain what they're looking for from the district. So welcome, Mr. Simpson, and thank you, Jeremiah.
Yeah, I'm just going to work with Dave. He's got a proposal for us. I just thought I could share with you guys. So the city has been expanding our recreation trail network for quite some time now. Had a lot of interest in various sections, and the current plan is to do 2 sections this year. One is going to have a double O. It's basically down in the southeast corner of the city. Second section would be the section I'm here for tonight is the Woods Road Trail from Racine Avenue to basically Windover Court, which is straight west of Racine Avenue, right on the curve as you're headed north there. So that section of pathway we're looking to do this year. We felt it would be a good section. We've had a lot of residents reach out asking for that section to be installed. Many of those I'm sure that attend school at the high school. And so as we proceeded with design, we realized that really the only place to put this path is in certain sections a bit onto the school's property. The way the current design lays out, we've already completed all the survey work, all the preliminary design is complete. I've included, hopefully, in the packets. So the design that's in your packets essentially shows proposed layout. This would be a 6-foot wide asphalt pathway, and it would basically be, for the vast majority of the length, would be between the fence and the ditch line. If you can picture where most of the athletic field fencing is, it'd be between that fencing, existing fencing, and the top of the ditch section that's along Woods Road there. And some of that is in right-of-way, and some of that's actually off right-of-way onto the school district property. So what I'm here for tonight is kind of discuss that with you all and see if the school district would be interested in granting an easement for that purpose, to have that recreational pathway there. The city would clear the path like we do with all of our other paths. We clear those basically when time permits. Right now, we at the end of a snowstorm, we of course clear the roads first, parking lot second, third is pathways. We've been making pretty good headway with our path clearing. We've made a lot of progress in the last 2 years. We're able to clear those paths relatively quickly in the winter. And we just think it would be a good benefit to the community as a whole. So we're here to kind of discuss that. Of course, they all were going to ask me, I don't want to be asked if you take in a few dollars too, but sure, we can discuss that as well. So that's kind of what we're here for, is to discuss that easement. I've included a draft of the easement document. It's kind of our standard template that we use for other pathway easements throughout the city. It's really be open to questions, kind of over the design if you like, or anything you
And it can't go on the other side of Woods Road because
there's not enough space there. The ditch is actually deeper on that side. It would be on private property, same as on the school side, being a bunch of private property as well. And we feel the use to the student body would be better on the south side as well, because of course the student body would have to cross to go to the north side to get to the back.
I know you said you'd be between the fence and the ditch, or would any of the
Right, so
fences be disturbed during construction or anything like that?
So yeah, so fences would not be disturbed, we have enough space so we can stay away from the fences. We think we can accomplish accommodating all the drainage, we don't feel like we can impact drainage. Ways that currently field drains, some places it does drain this to the north. We don't think we have any problem working around that. Make sure we don't block any drainage ways or anything like that.
Jeremiah, is there any concerns from your end?
No, I see students running throughout the city for cross-country tracks. I think that would be a good benefit to the school as well to have a, tractor walking path throughout that area.
A couple things that popped into my head to start with is, well, to answer your first question, the ultimate no.
Okay.
At least from my standpoint. So, the clearing of the...
I think we'd feel differently if we were requesting it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
The other concern I have is the snow removal on it. If there's a way of having that particular part of the path moved up in a priority, because citizens will look at that, see it on next to the schools, and we're going to be fielding all the calls for it.
Right.
I realize it's where your network stands on it, but we're going to get the ones with the calls on it because they're just good. People don't understand. They see a sidewalk in front of a business and they blend to business and all that. So.
Sure, I've talked to our superintendent about like priorities and how they would fall in his view. And right now, what we do is we come out of the shop, which is an industrial park near the water towers. It's not far. We come down Racine Avenue. We go north and south, and they would just basically use that same equipment and head down to the west to clear that section. So I would envision having that a first priority relatively easily without a major change to our current clearing operation. So it wouldn't be an issue.
My big concern when I saw the plan when I first heard about it, and I think we already have this covered. The entrance by the football field. We have like a security officer there when school lets out and when school starts.
I don't know if
I'm more concerned about letting out. I'm pretty sure there's one there. I'm just a little concerned with, as we've discussed many times, coming in I don't think it's as crucial because it's spread out more. They're not as anxious to get into school for some reason.
If it helps, I was there when it was letting out a couple of times, and yeah, you guys do have someone there. And what you do is basically stop traffic on Woods Road, and I'm sure you can do the same for pedestrians, and then let a bunch of cars out, and then repeat that process.
I'm just a little concerned about the morning, not as much though. I don't know if there's some.
What's your concern?
Somebody pulling in and somebody's trying to cross. They're teenage kids. They've been driving for a year and a half. They don't work out as much as they should, and very often and some of them are in a hurry to get to school because they have 2 minutes to get to the locker room for class. So I'm just a little concerned about that. I don't know if we want to just kind of monitor it during the morning, just to make sure it won't be a problem after it's been installed.
Or to see if we need additional support there. In the morning. Well, sure. I mean, of course.
If we have personnel, just go out the last 10, 15 minutes before school starts. Just to kind of make sure there's not really, or maybe put up a couple signs on the crosswalk that say "Watch for cars," just to make sure everybody's aware of it. It's just my concern. I just want to make sure we're not going to have any issues.
Correct. Yeah. At those so you're talking about those 2 entrances right into the high school parking lot. The city would be interested in putting little stop signs or
Well, I envision
caution.
probably putting a crosswalk in across those driveways to really draw the driver's attention to that to help.
My first thought was, you know how they very often have the yield to pedestrians, but that's a little, I don't think we can do that because of the positioning of the road.
Right. The other option would be, like Kelly said, putting a smaller stop sign or yield sign on the actual pathway.
Yeah.
Make the pedestrian aware that that's kind of a...
Yeah, I'd be a little more comfortable with that, just because I don't want to see it.
Yeah.
It's interesting building a bridge.
Sure. Well, if you're asking for it, any contribution.
Nothing else really pops up on it. I our resident planner is not here today. I'd like to take a look at it first before.
And Kelly, if we went forward with this, legal counsel would review the easement document. Because there's a couple things in there that I would think they want to, like paragraph 8 and the intro.
And this is actually just a boilerplate. Our attorney actually just started today. This is his first day. So I plan on having him review this as well.
Okay. So then we'll wait for the second draft before we send it off to our attorney.
Yes, please.
So are you guys still putting signage on these trails about winter use?
No, we've removed all the signs, and our plan is to clear them all. The state statute says you have to clear all sidewalks within 3 weeks of an event, which is certainly we would certainly accomplish that.
An event, a
So
weather
a
event.
weather event, yeah. So that's thus far not been a problem. I guess if we had a lot of heavy events in a row, it could potentially be a problem. And the state law actually refers to sidewalk. So there's some gray area as it comes to what's considered sidewalk and what's considered recreational facility. Hopefully they have to figure out what's what, but
Now, if
we keep clearing them, we'll be all right.
I'm correct, state law also allows you through ordinance to pass that responsibility on to the adjoining property owner.
So the council's had that discussion and they've decided to take that burden on.
No, I understand that, but I would want an easement that regardless of what you guys do, you're responsible for clearing this. We will not clear some future ordinance.
I'll rip it up before I have to clear it.
So yeah, we could add that into the easement. That'd be a problem.
All right. So is there any liability on our end? So there's a sidewalk, let's say it's a sidewalk or a trail in front of the school. Are we required at that point to make sure that that's clear in order for the school day to start? Not to start, it's going to start no matter what, but prior to the school day, make sure that's clear for the safety of our students. So I'm thinking we probably do have some liability there. So I'm guessing under their plan of, and I understand your priorities completely, roads are more important, of course, but it almost seems like we may be responsible for clearing those.
Let's find out from our attorney.
Yeah, it's gonna be a legal question for sure. I'm not sure how that would look.
Because I can't really see us leaving them. You know, the first day, let's say they got there 12 hours later, I still don't see us leaving them at the start of the school day if we have pedestrian traffic.
All I can say is the paths leading up to that path will be cleared at the same time that path is cleared. So we'd be having to walk through an uncleared path, which is a cleared path.
Which is not on our
The bigger issue would be all the people coming from the settlement and Plum Creek up. It's the only path.
Hey, Jeremiah, and on that topic, does this inhibit anywhere where we put snow when we're plowing?
No, usually we go east or west. High school parking lot, we typically push north.
Okay.
And then the soccer stadium, we'll follow their cultures.
Okay, so we go east to west.
And you can see.
All right, we'll look back.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll do the draft.
Sounds great.
All right, jumping back to resolution action item 5B, student fees.
Motion to approve school fees as presented.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Okay, so the only fee increase that we are requesting is the food service fee increase. At the last meeting, we did talk about that additional $10 fee for drug testing, but we are taking that away. And we'll just ensure that if students are receiving parking permits, that they will pay $10 for their fee if they haven't already participated in a co-curricular or a sport.
So what's the only fee that you're looking at?
The food service fee increase.
Which is what?
So this would be an increase to $2.40 for an elementary meal and $2.80 for the secondary level. This is up from the $2.25 for elementary and $2.65 for secondary schools.
So at the bottom, under administrative content,
Yes.
you're listing each year that we've had the random drug testing.
Correct.
So we're not spending even close to the amount that we receive in fees.
We're receiving a lot of money up front, and the testing is done throughout the year.
Yes.
So it does, and with the increase in the performance enhancement testing, there will be an increase in cost associated with that as well.
If we do more,
As we continue to do.
As we continue, we just started out.
So we should wait, maybe till the end of the school year to see where those all.
Right. I think that was the direction that we gave staff last time, was to look at which way we want to use it, how to use those dollars best within the program.
Julie, you
Yes.
said the increase in the TED test?
Well, the addition of. Sorry.
Because it's a more expensive.
It's a more expensive test than the standard test that's done.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimously. Moving on to item 7, information follow-up. Hearing none, could I get a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of going to closed session for the purpose of considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation of the specific employees over which the board has jurisdiction, specifically our superintendent mid-year review. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We will be going into closed session. We will only be coming out of closed session to adjourn. And no action will be taken. Everyone have a great night. Thank you.